My ex-wife, the one who cheated on me, and her boyfriend tried to humiliate me in court, all because I turn a wrench for a living. But everything changed the moment the judge uncovered the truth about who I really was. I'm 34 now, and I've been holding this in for years. It's been eating at me, and honestly, it all comes down to my divorce. I've been in the auto repair business for over a decade, started right after finishing tech school. Before that, I've been learning since I was 16, watching my uncle fix cars in his garage. I got certified, started working at a well-known local shop, not there anymore, but we'll get to that. People think being a mechanic means oil changes and tire rotations, but cars today? They're basically rolling computers. You fall behind fast if you don't keep up. It's honest work. It pays the bills. And more than anything, I love what I do. That's actually how I met Emily, not her real name, about 8 years ago. She came into the shop with car trouble. Looking back, the red flags were already waving that day. She kept going on about how her car was high-end and needed expert hands. I remember thinking she sounded kind of high maintenance, but then she smiled, and I forgot all that. She worked at a fancy downtown marketing firm, always dressed sharp, with designer bags I couldn't even pronounce. Honestly, I felt lucky someone like her even looked twice at me. Sure, I was earning decent money, but I still came home every night covered in grease. We started dating, and in the beginning, it was great. She'd ask about my work and seemed genuinely curious about how things ran under the hood. Sometimes she'd surprise me at the shop with lunch, and the guys would joke that I'd landed way out of my league. I thought she might be different from the usual corporate crowd who looked down on guys like me. She used to say she admired my drive, that I stuck to what I loved. After 3 years, we got married. The wedding was pretty big. Her dad covered most of the cost, though I did what I could. Her father came off as polite enough, but I had a feeling he looked down on me. He was a big shot in real estate, and even though he acted like he respected my trade, I always wondered if he was just putting on a show. Still, he agreed to co-sign the mortgage on my house. I bought it before we got married, after years of saving, living cheap in a tiny apartment, and picking up side gigs. It wasn't a mansion, just a modest 3-bedroom, 2-bath place with a decent yard, but it was in a good area, and I was proud of it. Having her dad co-sign helped lock in a lower interest rate. But let me be clear, I paid for every single installment myself. Never missed a payment. At first, Emily seemed excited about the house. She talked about renovation plans, turning it into our home. But not long after, things changed. When her friends came by, which wasn't often, she'd make little comments like, "We're thinking of upgrading to a better neighborhood soon," or call it our starter home. That stung. It made me feel like everything I'd worked for didn't mean much to her. I also noticed how she avoided mentioning that I was a mechanic. At her office parties, when she did invite me, she'd introduce me as someone who runs a small automotive business. Technically, that became true later when I opened my own shop, but at the time, it just felt like she didn't want people knowing I worked in a garage. My sister Laura never trusted her. She'd come by the shop for tune-ups and told me once, "I don't like the way she looks at you, like you're some fixer-upper project." I laughed it off, figured it was just typical big sister stuff. You know, nobody's ever good enough. Our first year of marriage was okay. We found a rhythm. I worked long hours at the shop, sometimes stayed late. Emily worked a standard 9 to 5, but often had late meetings or team-building nights. I probably should have questioned it more, but I was busy too, taking night classes at the community college. I didn't tell her about those. Every time I brought up trying something new, she'd roll her eyes or crack a joke, like I was wasting time unless it meant leaving the garage behind. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to see them. She'd wrinkle her nose when I came home in stained coveralls. Stopped coming out to the garage when I worked on my project car. Constantly nudged me to go get a real career. But hindsight's 20/20ths. Things really started unraveling about 4 years in, when she got a promotion, and it immediately went to her head. Suddenly, it was all talk about big clients, VIP events, and one name came up again and again, Brian. Apparently, he helped her a lot with the promotion. One night, she came home way past 11 p.m. wearing a dress I'd never seen before. When I asked where she got it, she brushed me off like I was being ridiculous. Not long after that, she started openly criticizing the house. Her dad came over one evening and, right in front of me, said the neighborhood wasn't up to their standards. He made it clear that I was holding her back. Emily just sat there, nodding, while he reminded me that since his name was on the loan, he had a say in what we did with the place. What really started to sting was how Emily began treating my work, like it was some kind of joke. One day, a wealthy client brought in his Ferrari. Most shops around here wouldn't touch a car like that, but I've got the certifications to handle high-end vehicles. It was a big deal, a real trust moment. But instead of being proud, Emily told her friends I was playing with fancy toys instead of building a real career. Meanwhile, I was making great money doing specialized repairs. Not once did she ask how much those jobs paid. At first, I'd laugh it off, pretend it didn't get to me. But over time, those little digs wore me down. Then came the office parties. God, those were brutal. One I'll never forget was their big Christmas event, hosted at one of those fancy downtown hotels. I spent a solid chunk of money on a sharp-looking suit, just so I wouldn't stick out. But the whole night, Emily kept drifting off to chat with her work friends, leaving me standing there like a prop. Her coworkers weren't exactly welcoming, either. Just to see a finance bros and marketing hotshots, flexing about stock portfolios and vacation homes. One guy, after Emily introduced me as her husband, turned and asked if I knew a good mechanic. She laughed. I didn't. I stood there feeling invisible. After that night, the space between us only grew wider. We used to have dinner together, at least. Now she was barely home, and when she was glued to her phone or buried in her laptop. I tried suggesting date nights, maybe a weekend trip like we used to do back when things were good. But there was always some urgent work thing she just couldn't miss. I noticed she was texting all the time. If I walked into the room, she'd flip her phone over. If it rang, she'd step into the hallway to answer. I know, classic signs, right? But I kept telling myself I was just being paranoid. After all, she'd just gotten promoted. It made sense she was under pressure. Then her brother got involved. And that only made things worse. That guy was a problem from day one. He brought his car to my shop once and expected me to fix it for free, just because we were family. I politely told him I still had to charge him, like any other customer. He ran crying to Emily, and she took his side. Said I was being unfair, that I was making a big deal out of just turning a few bolts. Her dad started getting involved too, showing up at my shop unannounced, demanding to see my finances, claiming he had a right because of the mortgage cosign. Never mind the fact I hadn't missed a single payment. Not once. I started working late more often, not just because the shop was busy, but because I didn't want to be home. I was still taking business classes at the community college. Emily never asked where I was or why I came home late. I'm sure she figured I was just buried under engines. Eventually, she started tossing out little jabs, like, guess you picked motor oil over your marriage. But the real breaking point? That came during her company's summer party. They rented out a rooftop bar with a full skyline view. Emily insisted I come. Said it'd make up for missing the other events. Funny thing is, I hadn't missed them. She just told people I wasn't available. I showed up, and the very first thing I saw was her standing way too close to a tall guy in a designer suit. That was Brian, the coworker she kept mentioning ever since the promotion. When they noticed me, they jumped apart like teenagers getting caught. That was it. I didn't have hard proof yet, but the alarm bells were deafening. I'm not usually the snooping type. But after that, I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. I started paying attention. Every Thursday, she stayed late at the office. So one night, I swung by the parking lot on my way home, and guess what? Her car wasn't there. Then the credit card statements started piling up. Charges at restaurants I'd never heard of. Always for two people. Always on Thursdays. When I asked about it, she snapped. Said they were client dinners. Funny how all our client meetings involved candlelit tables downtown. Then one afternoon, I was sorting through the mail and saw a sleek envelope from an upscale jewelry store. Inside, a receipt for a men's watch. No birthday, no anniversary. And she'd never been the type to buy me anything fancy, always said I didn't need delicate stuff, since I worked with my hands. I brought it up. Tried to talk. Tried to get her to open up. But she flipped it. Accused me of being insecure. Told me I was imagining things. Every time I brought up the weird behavior, the expenses, the secret of phone use, the watch, she looked at me like I was losing my mind. Said I was acting possessive. That I was turning into some jealous control freak. The more I asked, the colder she got. It was like living with a stranger. And then came the confirmation. From someone I never expected. A woman named Rachel came into the shop for an oil change. She worked with Emily. She saw me and looked genuinely surprised. Then she said, "Oh, I thought you two had already split." I asked what she meant. And she told me plain as day that everyone at the office knew about Emily and Brian. Their lunches weren't a secret anymore. They weren't even trying to hide it. That day, Rachel dropped a bomb. She told me Emily had been telling everyone at work that we were separated, that we didn't even live together anymore. Meanwhile, I was still coming home every night, cooking dinner she never showed up for, and paying every single bill like nothing had changed. I later found out she'd even stopped wearing her wedding ring at the office, said it didn't fit with her professional brand. It's hard to explain what it feels like when everything you've built turns out to be a lie. Deep down, I think I already knew. But hearing it out loud? That hit differently. Every late night, I waited up for her. Every time I defended her to my family. Despite all their warnings, it all started to feel like one big joke. Even the expensive suit I bought for her Christmas party? Just another part of the lie. I felt like I was stuck in some alternate reality, trying to fix a marriage that, in her mind, had ended long ago. And you know what? The cheating wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was how hard she worked to make me look like a fool, like I was the clueless husband who couldn't see what was right in front of him. That's when I knew I couldn't just sit back. I had to act. I had to gather proof. The marriage was over, but I wasn't going to let her steamroll me on her way out. One of my buddies is a cop. He helped me set up a system to track everything: dates, credit card charges, location data. I started documenting everything: screenshots, receipts, tracking where she said she was versus where she actually went. Every new detail was like another nail in the coffin. Only this time, I was the one holding the hammer. They had a whole routine worked out. She'd tell me she was going to a marketing conference for the weekend, but she was really shacking up at a luxury hotel downtown with Brian. One time, she even used our joint account to pay for the room by mistake. Rookie move. What really hit me, though, was when I found screenshots on her laptop. She and Brian had been browsing houses together, luxury homes in the nicest part of town. In their messages, they joked about how they'd finally be able to afford one after cutting the deadweight. I'm pretty sure that deadweight was me. One day, my sister Laura came by the shop and found me in rough shape. I hadn't been sleeping, barely eating. She sat me down, looked through everything I'd collected, and said, "You need a divorce lawyer." Now, she knew a guy as someone who specialized in messy cases like this. So I kept my head down, went to business classes, worked late at the shop, stayed focused. Then one night, Emily actually came home early. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through some financial documents. She assumed it was just shop invoices. More repair bills, she said, giving me that smug little smile I'd grown to hate. Just trying to stay on top of things, I said, quietly slipping my business school coursework underneath the pile. You know how us lowly mechanics are. She sighed, all dramatic. If you just let me manage the books like I offered. I mean, I do have an MBA. I smiled. Wouldn't want to trouble you with my little shop's issues, I said. Truth was, I just aced a business valuation exam the week before. Besides, I added, you've been swamped with all those late-night strategy sessions lately. How was tonight's meeting? She barely looked up. Very productive, she said. We're working on something major. I bet, I mumbled, stacking my papers. Anyway, don't let me keep you from building your executive empire. I'll just stick to my greasy little world. She gave me that look again, that condescending smirk, like I'd never understand her real life, and walked out. Let her think I was just the dumb guy with the wrench. She had no idea what I was preparing for. While she was too busy belittling my job, I was quietly building something smarter, something solid. But the final straw? That came one morning when I checked our joint savings account. It was drained. She'd moved nearly everything out, left just enough to cover the next round of bills. I asked her what the hell she was doing. She didn't even bother lying. Said she was investing in her future. That was it. I picked up the phone and called the lawyer. Our first meeting was a wake-up call. He reviewed everything: texts, receipts, even some audio I'd started recording, and told me I had a strong case. Especially since we lived in a state where adultery still matters in court. He told me to play it cool, keep things looking normal while he filed the paperwork. That was the hardest part. For 3 weeks, I had to pretend like everything was fine. I'd watch her get ready every morning, knowing full well she was heading off to see Brian. She'd come home late, feeding me the same tired lies about client dinners. I even sat through a meal with her parents, listening to her dad suggest I sign over part of the house for Emily's protection. My lawyer told me to record it. One-party consent is all you need in my state. And what I got was gold. Her dad actually joked, on tape, about making my life miserable if I didn't play ball. And then came the day everything finally blew up. It was a Thursday, her usual late meeting night. I was at the shop when I got a call from my next-door neighbor. "Hey," he said, Just thought you should know. Emily just pulled into your driveway with some guy I've never seen before. They went inside together. I didn't need a description. I knew exactly who it was. Brian. My hands didn't shake as I grabbed my keys and headed home. It's strange how calm you can feel when the moment you've been dreading finally arrives. I walked into the house, and there they were, Emily and Brian, standing in the kitchen like they owned the place. His hands were around her waist. The look on her face when she turned and saw me. I'll never forget it. Get out, I said, not yelling, not threatening. Just quiet and firm. Both of you. Now. Emily froze at first, but it didn't last long. Her expression hardened almost instantly. This is my house too, you can't just... The house I paid for, I said, still calm. That only made her angrier. You've got 30 minutes. Pack a bag and leave. Brian didn't say a word. He walked out without looking at me. Emily stayed. She yelled, argued, pulled out her phone, and called her father. Less than half an hour later, I saw her dad's SUV screech into the driveway. Her brother Kevin jumped out first, like they were coming to put out a fire. Her dad tried to push past me at the door. You can't kick my daughter out of her own home. Kevin was right behind him, puffing himself up like he was ready to start something. I held up my phone. I was already recording. You're trespassing, I said. The police are already on the way. I co-signed the loan. Her dad snapped, waving a folder in my face. And I've made every single payment, with my own money, I said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Your daughter's been having an affair. I have receipts, messages, all of it. You really want the neighborhood to witness all this? That's about when the police arrived. I wasn't surprised. I've done plenty of work on patrol cars over the years. Kevin stopped posturing the second he saw them. Her dad backed off too. Things settled down. The officers waited while Emily grabbed a few things. Her dad and brother hung back by the car, noticeably quieter now. As she was walking out the door, Emily turned and said, You're going to regret this. You have no idea what you're doing. I looked at her. Actually, for the first time in a long time, I do. The next day, my attorney filed for divorce. Emily was served at work. I heard later that she caused a scene in front of her coworkers, crying, claiming I'd blindsided her and was being cruel. Meanwhile, she'd been planning to leave me for Brian and take half of everything. Her lawyer sent over a settlement offer. According to them, I could keep the house if I paid Emily a ridiculous buyout. Like I had thousands stashed away somewhere. My lawyer didn't even blink. He sent back a short reply and told them to stop wasting our time. That weekend, things got ugly. Emily's family started spreading stories that I was abusive, that I trapped her in a toxic marriage, that I was trying to ruin her financially. Some of her friends jumped on social media, turning me into the villain of her story. My sister Laura wanted to speak up, set the record straight, but I told her not to. Let them talk, I said. Truth doesn't need to scream to be real. Emily tried to come back and collect more of her things, but by then I'd changed the locks. My lawyer told me she had to go through proper legal channels now. She left a voicemail, long, dramatic, full of accusations. She called me petty, immature. That coming from someone who brought her boyfriend into our home. The weeks that followed were a mess of legal letters. Her lawyer kept demanding things like she was entitled to my entire life, the house, half my savings, my project car, even my tools. Like she was ordering from a catalog. Our first court appearance was just a pre-hearing, but you'd never know it by the way she showed up. Emily walked in with her parents, Brian, and a flashy attorney who looked like he was auditioning for a legal drama. They sat together, whispering and smirking like the outcome was already decided. My lawyer told me to wear my clean shop uniform, the one with my name and certification stitched in. He said it would show exactly who I was, a trained, hard-working professional, not the image they were trying to push. When Emily saw me, she actually laughed, leaned toward Brian and said, just loud enough for me to hear. He couldn't even dress for court. Then her lawyer got up and started painting a picture of our marriage full of half-truths and outright lies. Claimed Emily supported me financially, helped manage my business, handled our accounting, none of which was true. She never touched my books. Then they moved onto the house. Her dad took the stand and said he co-signed the mortgage because I couldn't get approved on my own, like he was some kind of hero doing charity. But my lawyer didn't flinch. He took notes, waited, and when the time was right, he responded. When they tried to downplay Brian's role, calling him just a supportive colleague, my lawyer dropped a file on the table. Printed texts, hotel invoices, photos, timestamped, cross-referenced, all from nights Emily claimed to be out of town for work. Then Emily's mom stood up, not officially testifying, just couldn't help herself, and gave this emotional speech about how her daughter deserved more than just a mechanic. She said I held Emily back from her true potential. Even brought up a prenup they once suggested, the one I refused, claiming it would have protected everyone. All I could think was, protected who, exactly? The whole time in court, Brian sat there with that smug look glued to his face. At one point, he actually handed over documents showing off his salary and bonuses, like he thought the court would be impressed. My lawyer took the stack without saying a word and slid it into our growing pile of evidence. They had no idea what was coming. During recess, I overheard Brian talking to Emily's brother. They were laughing, making plans to fix up my house. Talking about gutting the garage, turning my workshop into a home gym. Her dad stood nearby on the phone, already getting contractor estimates. Like everything was already theirs. But it didn't stop there. Emily's attorney actually tried to claim that she had partial ownership of my tools. My tools. She argued that Emily had helped pick them out, as if that gave her a stake in them. My lawyer calmly asked her to name a single tool. Just one. She couldn't. She mumbled something about supporting the buying process. Even the judge looked up from his notes at that one. Then they tried twisting my night classes into a weakness. Said I'd been neglecting the marriage by spending evenings at school. Conveniently leaving out the part where Emily was out those same nights, not working, but with Brian. By the end of the day, their demands were all laid out. They wanted the house, said her dad's co-signing gave them a claim. They wanted half my business, not knowing I even owned it. And they wanted my project car, because apparently putting up with it for years made Emily entitled to something. The judge set a follow-up court date for the next week. As I was leaving, Emily's dad caught up to me in the parking lot. Said this could all end quietly if I just gave them what they wanted. What he didn't realize was that my lawyer had been recording the entire conversation, video and audio. That next week was rough. I barely slept. I kept thinking about what they might pull next. My lawyer said we were in a strong position, but that didn't stop the doubts. Most nights, I'd go sit in the garage. Just me and my tools. I kept wondering, is this the last week I get to be in this space? My family tried to keep me grounded, but they could see I was stretched thin. What Emily and her family didn't get was this. All their lies, all their fake stories, they weren't breaking me. They were just making me more determined. When we walked back into court the next week, it felt like stepping into a ring. Emily's team lined up their witnesses. First was an expert who'd somehow valued my business without ever setting foot in the shop. Then Brian took the stand, trying to paint Emily as some emotionally wounded victim who'd suffered through my lack of ambition. Her father followed, retelling the story as if he were a saint, the generous man who had tried to save his daughter from a life of mediocrity. Through it all, my lawyer just kept writing notes. Quiet, focused. Then it was our turn. He called our first witness, my former boss. Emily's side looked confused. Maybe they thought he was just there to talk about my work ethic. But then he pulled out a document. A contract, signed 9 months ago, showing that he hadn't just hired me. He'd sold me the business. I'd been the owner for 9 months. I just never left the garage floor because I actually enjoyed the work. That was the moment the room shifted. Brian stopped smiling. Emily's dad went quiet. Emily looked like the air had been knocked out of her. Then came the full breakdown. My lawyer laid out every detail. The business classes I'd taken, the loan I secured under my name only, the savings I used, all earned before any of this started. We brought in full financials, showed how well the shop was doing, contracts with 3 luxury car dealerships, a fleet maintenance deal, plans for a second location, all of it built quietly, while Emily was busy rolling her eyes at my dirty job. Then we dropped the real number, the current value of the business. When Emily stood up and shouted that she was entitled to half, my lawyer calmly presented the purchase agreement, dated and signed a month before I discovered her affair. Bought with my own money, my own name, and no involvement from her. The judge looked directly at her. If you were so involved in this business, he asked, why didn't you know it had been sold? Her lawyer tried to argue that I'd hidden assets, but we had timestamps, bank statements, and GPS data showing exactly where Emily was the day I bought the shop. She wasn't at home. She was with Brian. At a hotel. Her dad tried one last time, brought up the house again. Said his co-signing meant he still had a stake. My lawyer simply pulled out refinance documents. The mortgage had been redone 4 months ago, fully under my name. No co-signer. No favors. Just me. It was almost funny, the way Emily's dad kept acting like he still had some claim to the house. Turns out, I'd refinanced it 4 months earlier. His name wasn't anywhere on the paperwork anymore. I'd done it quietly, while they were too busy scheming, thinking they were going to take everything from me. Then, during a break in court, everything finally cracked open. Emily was in the hallway, yelling at her lawyer for not digging deeper into my finances. Brian, nowhere to be found. He disappeared the moment things didn't look profitable anymore. I guess the idea of his girlfriend walking away empty-handed wasn't part of his plan. Her brother was pacing, on the phone with someone, clearly panicking. Their mother tried to calm things down, but it wasn't working. The highlight, though, Emily's dad, red in the face, barking at his attorney for missing the business purchase. "We should have hired a private investigator," he shouted. My lawyer recorded the entire hallway exchange, just in case. Back in the courtroom, Emily's entire tone had changed. She went from confident to suddenly emotional. Started talking about how she'd always supported me, how she gave up career opportunities for the sake of my business. The judge didn't even respond, just listened. Then her attorney claimed that her emotional support was a key part of my success, that she deserved a share of the business. My lawyer responded with audio recordings. Emily's voice, calling me a grease monkey, joking to Brian that she was embarrassed I worked with my hands. That kind of support. And then, out of nowhere, another man entered the courtroom, Brian's personal attorney. He stated that Brian had no involvement in Emily's financial decisions and wasn't aware of anything beyond their personal relationship. Translation, he wanted out, and fast. Emily's face said it all, like the ground just disappeared beneath her. Then came the ruling. The judge stated, in no uncertain terms, that Emily had no legal right to the business. She hadn't contributed to it. She didn't even know it existed. The house. Mine. No division. No conditions. She kept her car, since it was in her name. She was awarded a small transitional support payment, 3 months. That was it. She broke down crying. Said it wasn't fair. Said she'd wasted years of her life. The judge told her to sit down or face contempt charges. Her mother had to guide her out of the room. After everything settled, it didn't stop there. Emily's dad started spreading rumors, trying to damage my name in business circles. But it backfired. Most of the local business owners already knew I'd bought the shop. We all crossed paths through the local association. A few even started sending their top clients to me. The shop's reputation grew. Clients respected that I still worked hands-on, that I built something real instead of just buying a title. High-end work started coming in steadily. People wanted quality. And Brian? Turns out his company had a strict policy about office relationships, especially with married coworkers. Someone sent HR copies of the court filings. He got demoted, transferred to some remote branch 3 states away. Emily tried to hold on to her job, but it didn't last. The big client she and Brian had managed pulled their contract and asked for a new team. She ended up quitting. Later, she tried to sue the company, claiming a hostile work environment. It went nowhere. Meanwhile, my shop kept growing. That second location I'd been planning opened last month. I've hired a great team, people who take pride in what they do. Emily's dad still tries to stay relevant. Tells people he mentored me. No one buys it. The court documents are public record. And people remember when you try to take your son-in-law's house. As for that house Emily fought so hard for, I just finished renovations. Put in a new garage twice the size of the old one. Every now and then, I'll see her car slowly pass by. Maybe she's remembering all the plans she once made for it. Her brother won't come near my shop. He goes somewhere else now, overpays, and gets half the service. Last month, I got a long email from Emily. She said she regretted everything. Claimed she didn't mean to hurt me. Said Brian wasn't who she thought he was, especially after he ghosted her and took that transfer without saying a word. She wanted to talk things through. I never responded. My sister Laura keeps saying I should turn all of this into a book. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm focused on what matters, running my shops, building something that lasts, and staying true to who I am. I still wear my shop uniform almost every day. I could dress up if I wanted. But I take pride in what I do. And the people I work with? They respect that. Just last week, I signed a major new contract. The client came into the shop to finalize the deal. I was under a car when he walked in. Didn't matter. I wiped my hands, shook his, and signed the paperwork. A few of Emily's old friends bring their cars in now. The same ones who once looked down on me. They act like nothing ever happened. I treat them like everyone else. Because at the end of the day, real success doesn't need to prove anything. It just keeps showing up.